Hey guys, today I found a new post from a user named firm underscore funny underscore 3348. Basically says that should we sell our home? If yes, what should we do with profit? And I really like this post because I think this actually um, is where a lot of people are, especially if we bought a house in the last 2, 3, 4 years where the home prices just exploded. And also that, if you ended up, if you are, like most of the people who actually ended up, either purchasing the house when the interest rates were so low, or if you happen to refinance during the when the interest rates were super low, where you have, about 3% interest rate, maybe under 3% interest rate. I think this is actually a good post to kind of, because I think at one point we all kind of thought about this, and we were kind of looking at things, and most of the responses came where, say, hey, keep that interest rate, stay there. This is like the house that you're gonna live in forever, just because the interest rates are so low. I actually disagree with that, and so kind of want to talk about it a little bit more. I would love to hear what your thoughts are, and we can kind of see and love to hear the feedbacks. So let's get started. Um, so the person writes, my wife, 25-year-old female, and I, 27 male, currently live in South Florida. We bought our house just over 2 years ago for 415. We put down 10%, have 2.625% interest rate for 30 years. At the moment, we owe about 360 on the mortgage. House was a fixer upper. We renovated it. House appreciated. We can confidently sell it fairly quickly for about 480. I'm sorry, 850. Which after the fees and things, we should walk away with 460 to 470. We're young, no kids yet, but do enjoy living in the house, neighborhood. It checks off all the boxes: enough rooms, bathroom, pool, school district, neighborhood. If we leave, would not be able to afford this neighborhood again if the market stays like it is or get worse. Together, our salary is about 150,000. Only debt outside of the mortgage is a car payment of 570. No student loans, nothing else. Credit cards are always paid in full. Right now, it's just two of us, but would like to begin to have trying to have a children. Aside from equity in our home, we have about $30,000 saved. We're just really stuck between staying here or selling it and moving. We sell it, we would probably go rent. I know, scary, until we can find another house that would suit our needs, or until we build a house using the funds we walked away with. This is life-changing money, so there is a lot to consider. What would you do? Any of you is appreciated. Thank you in advance. We seriously appreciate it. Again, a lot of recommendation is saying that you like the house, you have a low interest rate in it, stay there, live there forever until the I don't know, house falls apart. I guess. Just a couple of things here. One, they're super young. They're 25, 27. I don't know what kind of field they're in. I don't know what their career path is going to look like. But I just don't like the idea of living there just because they like the home and the interest rate is so low. And I just don't know if that kind of makes sense. Only because at a young age, if you're an employee, your career path might change. I just read it recently that the Verizon is laying off a whole bunch of people. I'm sure, there's been a lot of layoffs in the last year and this year as well, just because of the economy and stuff like that. Who knows if South Florida is not the right place for you. Maybe right now, but maybe not next month, not next year, stuff like that. And so I don't like that the recommendation is to kind of live there just because interest rate is so low. The other thing is it's checking off all the boxes, it's checking off all the boxes. But you can actually get that kind of a house or even better house somewhere else. Somebody will have a home just like that at another city or another state or another town and stuff like that, and it's just, or maybe even better. It's just, um, as much as you think the neighborhood that you grew up in is, awesome, it's really nice. Once you pack up and move and you get to another place, chances are you'll be able to find another place like that or better, at another state, another town, and stuff like that. It's scary, but it's definitely can be done. And so, not moving because the house itself checks out all the boxes. Again, I just don't know if that's the best option for them or recommendation for them. And of course, all of that will be different if they were like 60, right? So if they're in the retirement age, or they bought this house as their last home, they kind of want to retire and kind of live in until they, pass away and that sort of things, then yes, that kind of makes sense. I think, at that age, at that time, maybe kind of stay there, and just making the minimum payments on it. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is, as long as they can afford the payment. I think that's the biggest thing, right? So if they're like 60, 70, I don't recommend them trying to pay it off. Be aggressive and try to pay it off by your 70 or 80. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, like realistically, right? But I would say just kind of, make the minimum payment as low as you can, and just kind of stay afloat, and use the cash flow to kind of survive, and kind of live and enjoy life, for that at that age. But again, just because they're so young, and they kind of mentioned about the having a kid, or trying to have a kid, and who knows, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe they want to move just because maybe the education system changes, or the district changes, or the neighborhood changes. Who knows what could happen. And so I just don't like that idea of that you have to be stuck there, just because the interest rates are low and then the home is what it is. Because I promise you will be able to find a house that you really like, at anywhere that you decided to move. And same thing with the interest rate. Like, I think I said this before, where we all know, nobody disagrees that nobody's disputing that the fact that the lower the interest rate when you're borrowing, the better it is for the borrower. But once you commit to that, once you get that interest rate locked in and borrow the money, that's already gone. That's already sunken cost. As long as you can afford the payment on it, and maybe you can go more into it, pay it off faster and things. But at the end of the day, essentially, you already got it, right? And so, just because the interest rate is 2.5%, versus 7%, that shouldn't necessarily dictate or change what you want to do in the future. Especially in this case, you're walking away from $470,000. Now, my recommendation would be to sell the property, get that cash, and invest it. If you're able to invest $450,000, $460,000 into the just general market, where you have the S&P 500 or the entire market, generally speaking, they say it goes up about 10% a year. Of course, last year and a half has been an exception, but not really an exception. It's just that's the market itself. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. But during that volatility, it always still goes up, and even with the ups and downs, it averages out where it does go up about 10% a year. So the longer the duration that you have, which you do as a 25, 27-year-old, you have time. So I would say get into it, buy it, $450,000, $460,000, compounded over 10 years. 10% a year for the next, I ran a number for 28 years because you have 28 years left on your house, on your mortgage. Then that's going to turn into about $7.5 million, right? Versus you actually keep making the payment on your current home, and you would have, after 28 years, you would have a paid off house. And it could be worth a lot, because, homes generally go up, in the US goes up about 4% a year in general. So if that's the case, right now I think you said it's 850 for the value of the home. So it's going to be worth about $2.6 million, and a 4% compounded in the next 28 years. So you would have a $2.6 million house that's completely paid for, or you could have $7.5 million that you could use it to, if you really, really have to have a house, then you can use some of that to, buy a really, really nice house cash. And again, who knows? Maybe your preference changes between now and next 28 years. Maybe you don't want to live where you want to live now, where you are living now, because the neighborhood changes. Like, I know the house the neighborhood I live in now, when I bought it back in 2014 versus today, a lot of people moved in, a lot of people moved out. My home is really, not needed a lot of work around the house and stuff like that. I've done a lot of work on it and stuff, but it's just my neighborhood has changed a lot. My work has changed. Now, like, my living situation has changed. I'm married now. I got a 3-year-old and stuff like that. My views have changed. So, like, I just don't like the fact that, I own a house myself, but it's just, whether you keep the house and living there or move the house and stuff like that, I just don't want that to be a determining factor, because of course, based on what I'm seeing, it seems like you already looked into selling the house, right? For a reason or another. And it sounds like, based on what I'm seeing, is that one of the biggest reason is because you have a lot of equity in the home. Now, if you gotta move, right? And if you don't have to move, you don't have to move. But if your thing is to try to see, hey, I'm just trying to see, because there's a lot of money just sitting in the house, and I want to kind of figure out what I want to do with it and to make the best use of it, I definitely think selling the house, putting that into an investment, to kind of have it kind of grow for the next, 20, 30 years is a good idea. Another thing to kind of consider is that early retirement, the financial independence and retire early. It seems like with the amount of income that you guys are getting and the amount of money you guys are able to save and things like that, it seems like you guys have a fairly low lifestyle. And again, I don't know how much it costs, but if you are able to kind of figure that out, you may be able to retire sooner than that. And of course, you guys are thinking about having children, and of course, it's going to change a lot on that, the budget and things. But before you actually have a child, you can actually set aside a whole lot and be aggressive towards the retirement, and that will set you up so much better. Again, the whole thing about, in my opinion, in my perspective, getting into the personal finances and budgeting and investing and all of that is so you can have more options. You have an option to change your career if you wanted to, change your location if you needed to, change things, this and that. Again, just having more options. And the earlier you start, and the earlier more you can put into that investment / retirement, the more of a freedom, the more of the option that you have to rely on. So I really think, again, I know that you really like the house, you really like the monthly payment on your home and stuff like that with the low interest rate, but I really don't like that the reason you are staying in the house, because the cost is 2.625%, or the rate is 2.625%, when you can actually walk away with over $400,000 that you could actually invest, where it can essentially compound and grow at 10% interest rate, versus a home that's going to appreciate at 4% interest rate. And to be honest, at that rate, all it's doing is keeping up with the inflation. Again, our target rate is lower than that, so maybe a little bit better than the inflation rate, but really all it's doing is doing that. So I just don't know if it's really worth it to kind of stay in the home, and just not to say that everybody should sell their house and stuff like that, but if you're young and if you're able to sell your home and take that kind of a profit, I definitely think that's a good recommendation. I know there's some tax implications and stuff like that. Of course, I'm not a CPA, so you can maybe consult with them about the tax and things like that. But that would be my recommendation. I would love to hear from other people's comments, thoughts. I know what I just said is probably not the most popular recommendation, but I think it's a unique point of view. And again, I would love to hear from other people. Thank you.